7 o'clock. So I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Planning Committee meeting. And could everyone please stand for... Oh, no, not yet. Sorry, I got excited. It's all right, sorry. So welcome to the planning meeting on Wyndham City Council, at Wyndham City Council this Tuesday, the 10th of May 2022. Wyndham City Council acknowledges the Bunurong and Wadawurrung people as the traditional owners of land on which Wyndham is being built, and we pay our respects to both elders, past, present and emerging. Now, if we could stand for the opening the prayer, please. We pray for guidance in the Council's decision-making to achieve the best outcome for the people of Windham. Please be seated. Sorry about that, I got a bit excited. I would like to welcome members of the gallery, councillors and staff in attendance here this evening. I suppose, advise councillors and officers that due to a technical glitch, it's not actually being live streamed. We have put out a statement on our comms advising of that, but we're trying to rectify it, I believe, and as soon as we finish it'll be put up anyway. So just be advised that this meeting is being recorded and not live streamed at the moment. The recording will be archived and made available on Council's website, and whilst all care has been taken to ensure that your privacy is maintained, please be aware that your presence may be recorded. So the format of the meeting this evening will be each item will be heard separately. As is practice, Council officers will present an overview of the report except for the DC PIPs, Mr McKinnon. They're both identical in the explanation, but they will be separate items. Registered submitters will then be invited to speak, and questions of clarification, if any, can be asked, and then we'll make a decision. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies. Now we have councillors in attendance, so we have quorum. Councillor Mia Shaw is attending the meeting remotely, and Mr CEO, we have one apology.
Yes, that's correct, Mr Mayor. Councillor Jenny Barrera is an apology this evening.
Who's actually in doing council work, but she's not here. So I assume that I need a mover and a seconder just to accept that apology. So could I have someone move that we... Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Seconder. Councillor Hill. Any discussion? All those in favour? Against? It is carried. Item 3, declaration by councillors of disclosure of conflict of interest, conflicting personal interest in any item of the agenda. Councillor Marcus, I believe you have...
I have a conflict of interest on 6.1 and 6.2, so I will be leaving the chamber.
Okay then, and we'll call you back when we finish those. Item 4 is confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting, and the motion is that the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 12th of April. I believe in your notes or agenda it says March, it's actually April 2022, as prepared and circulated, be confirmed. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Ramesh. Seconder, Councillor Zatkowski. Any discussion? There being none, I put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? I think Councillor Shaw is for, yes? Just come up late. Thank you very much. That motion is carried. Item 5, verbal submissions from applicants' objectors. Mr CEO, we have some people making verbal submissions, I believe.
That's correct, Mr Mayor. We have Jackie Kirby from Tract Consultants who will be speaking on behalf of the applicant for items 6.1 and 6.2, and then we have 5 objectors wishing to speak on item 6.3.
Thank you. So, Councillor Marcus, if you would. Thank you. Councillors, the first item on the agenda is 6.1, planning permit application, WYP 131588/21, use of the land for motor repairs, display of advertising signage and the construction of a building and associated work for 620 Leeks Road, Tarneet. The report's on pages 4 to 38, the recommendations on pages 4 to 12, attachments 39 to 53. Mr McKinnon, Acting Director, City Design and Livability, could you provide an overview of this report, please?
Certainly, Mr Mayor, thank you. So item 6.1 relates to an application to use the land for motor repairs, associated construction of works and signage at 620 Leeks Road. The site is located in the southern portion of the Tarneet Major Town Centre and will also form part of a commercial precinct known as the Tarneet Park Hub. The urban design framework was approved in March 2019. The underlying zone for the site is Commercial 1, and because the application is considered to be consistent with the approved urban design framework, no formal notification of this application was required. The application has been assessed against the relevant provisions of the planning scheme, including the UDF itself, the Commercial 1 zoning, a range of local and state planning policies, and the application is deemed to be considered consistent with the provisions of the planning scheme. It's for these reasons the report has recommended to Council that a permit subject to conditions improving the amenity uplift be issued. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr McKinnon. So we'll now hear from the applicant's representative, Jackie Kirby. There you are. Jackie, you have 5 minutes. If you could just advise us of your status in this, and as I said, you've got 5 minutes. You need to press the button. Right one, sorry.
Right one? How's that?
Yeah, better.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, my name's Jackie Kirby. I'm an Associate Town Planner at Track Planning Consultants, and I'm the Town Planner assisting Ranfurly in relation to this application. Just very quickly, I will be speaking in relation to the 2 planning applications that are being determined tonight, as they are relate to one another. I understand that, and I know that you'll get to this, that the second application is also recommended for a permit subject to conditions, so my comments are relevant to both. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the committee this evening. I really only wanted to speak tonight and not take up too much of your time to reiterate how important these 2 planning applications are to Ranfurly. These planning applications represent a key element in fulfilling the realisation of Tarneet Park Hub and build upon existing and approved development at the centre already. We really see, and Ranfurly see, Ranfurly and the project team are very excited to see this part of the centre come to fruition after many years of planning. More broadly, these applications represent a significant piece of the puzzle in delivering the outcomes of the Leeks Road Urban Design Framework, which seeks to deliver a vibrant and successful major town centre within Tarneet. In particular, with these 2 applications, the location, the type and mix of land uses proposed will activate and strengthen this part of Leeks Road and will complement the established shopping centre located to the south. We believe that this proposal will create opportunities for local employment and will increase the range of services available to existing and future residents and workers in the surrounding area. And finally, I'd just like to thank the Planning Department for their efforts in working very hard to get these 2 planning applications to tonight's committee meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie. Councillors, is there any questions before you go, Jackie? Is there any questions of Jackie before she leaves the lectern? None? Thanks, Jackie. Thank you. So, councillors, you've seen the recommendation and for the full recommendations on page 4 to 12. Councillor, can I have a mover for this item, please? Councillor Zatkowski. Seconder, please. Councillor Mahfood. Discussion, councillor Zatkowski. Microphone.
No, don't need to speak that closely. No, Mr Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mahfood. Does any councillors wish to speak against this motion or recommendation? Any for it? Being no speakers, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. 6.2, Planning Permit Application WIP 13191/21. Use and development of the land for a service station, creation of access to land in a public acquisition overlay, display of advertising signage, reduction to the bicycle facility requirements and the construction of a building and associated works at 620 Leaks Road, Tarneit. The report is on pages 54 to 90. The recommendation is page 54 to 62 with the attachments 91 to 110. Mr McKinnon, again, you will give us an overview.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And just picking up on the applicant's comments before, this is an application next to the previous subject site for 6.1. This time, council is being asked to consider application of development of a service station, ancillary works, signage, and other associated works associated with the proposal. Once again, the subject site is located in the Tarneit Tarneit Major Town Centre and is subject to the same urban design framework approved in March 2019. The application is being assessed against all the relevant provisions of the planning scheme, and once again is deemed to be consistent both in terms of the urban design framework approval, relevant clauses from 3401 through to 5205 dealing with car parking, and once again council officers are recommending approval subject to conditions be granted. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr McKinnon. So now, Jackie, you're up to the plate again, if you wish to say anything. You're quite happy? Just giving you the opportunity, that's fine. So I won't ask if there are any questions. So, okay. Councillors, I have a mover for this item, please. Councillor Zatkowski, a seconder, please. Councillor Ramesh. Councillor Zatkowski.
No, again, Mr Mayor, nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ramesh. Microphone.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Councillor Gilligan.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I accept, in essence, that the application before us does meet the relevant planning requirements, but I am in principle intending to oppose this item, and that is in part because it is quite underwhelming in terms of the objectives, if you will, of an urban design framework of this nature located next to a train station. And the best we can achieve is a fast food restaurant and a service station on this proposed subject site. At some point, we have to have an ability to talk to these things in terms of the type of preference that communities want to see. I quite often have it raised with me that people are sick and tired of petrol stations and fast food chains on the corner of every prominent street in this city, particularly in the northern parts of the suburb. And again, unlike the last application, which I do think had merit in this context, I don't. The other broad comment that I will make is that it is good to see, at least in part, again subject to the last application, the ability to transform these sites into the future. To be beyond what is proposed in this planning permit application. That is things like the opportunity to go up in the future and really transform this space as it was ideally intended to be. So for these reasons, I am opposed to this application. It is deeply disappointing that this is the best we can see in this space, but I do concede the reality is that the applicant can ultimately provide for these food and drink premises within the confines of the planning scheme, but notwithstanding that, I have a community obligation to oppose the proliferation of these types of developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, any further speakers for the motion? Any further? For? Thank you, Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am for the application. I do agree, though, with the added additions to the, or the main added addition to do with the permit to do with litter control. We have a lot of centres like this, particularly with fast food, where we have a lot of rubbish and a lot of rubbish that goes into the nearby areas. So I'm really pleased to see the permit element for litter control added in to this here. And that's what I want to say. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Any further speakers against? Any further speakers for? Now, Councillor Zatkowski, there was a speaker against. You do have the right of reply. Do you wish to exercise that or forego it?
Look, I'll just say quickly, Mr Mayor, that yes, it is the applicant's right to make this application. It does conform with the requirements as per the officer recommendation. There's certainly been instances of service stations I haven't agreed with. This is not one of them. I think given its busy location and proximity to a main thoroughfare along Leakes Road, it's ideally located for its purpose. So I don't object to it in any way. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councillor Zatkowski. So, councillors, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Oh no, you come that way. Thank you, councillors.
Call for a division. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
So we have a call for division. All those for? Councillor Shaw, Councillor Mahfood, Councillor McIntyre, Councillor Hill, Councillor Ramesh, Councillor Maynard, Councillor Zatkowski, Councillor Hegeditch against, Councillor Gilligan. Can we call Councillor Marcus in, please? So, councillors, the next item on the agenda is 6.3, consultation with council and council's response to clause 52.20 application, Victoria's big housing build program, development of 32 dwellings at 49 Stewart Drive in Werribee. The report's on page 111 to 128 with the recommendation on 111 to 116. Attachments pages 129 to 140. Mr McKinnon, will you provide us with an overview of this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, councillors, this is an application to seek approval for the Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change to construct 32 double-storey dwellings. So this report before you is not a decision for council, but a submission that council can make for the Minister to make her decision. The dwellings will be used for social housing as per clause 5220 of the Windham planning scheme, which is also forms part of Victoria's big housing build. You'll see in the officer's report that council officers considered the application in its current form should not be approved, and the written advice to the Minister or to the planners for this application is to oppose this development. The primary reasons for opposing this development is the citing, in that it's inappropriate, particularly in relation to its remoteness to key community services and also for transport infrastructure, which is a key element for community residents who would use this particular facility. Now, notwithstanding this officer's submission, this officer objection, it is noted that the Minister is the responsible authority, so will be the ultimate decision maker for this application. So this is Council's only opportunity to comment on the actual merits of the proposal itself. So officers have suggested a set of conditions if the Minister decides to issue that permit, notwithstanding our original opposal or opposition to the proposal. The response recommended that Council endorse, what we're recommending is that Council endorse the officer submission which is tabled before you, which is to oppose this proposal, but also put those conditions on which ensure a better degree of compliance with 5220 if the Minister decides to approve it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr McKinnon. So now we have some objectors that wish to speak. Can I please ask, well, you won't need to introduce yourself because I'll do that. Just state your interest and also just advising that you have 5 minutes. So the first one to speak is Andrew Nash. Andrew is here? No? Doesn't look as though he's here. Okay. Gail Courtney. If you could step up to the lectern, Gail, and you have 5 minutes if you wish to take up those 5 minutes. Can we make sure the microphone's on for Gail, please, before we start? Is the microphone on?
My name is Gail Courtney and I've lived in Stewart Drive for the past 40 years. The reason we originally bought here was that it was a very safe, quiet area that could not be built on or added to, and we have continually enjoyed the tranquility and safety the area has to offer. It is virtually a crime-free area, which is very rare these days. The only major disruption we have experienced in the area was during the construction of a single-level home which was built at 31 Stewart Drive in the first half of 2020. The inaccessibility of this small area was very much evident during this construction. Contractors' vehicles were constantly parked on either side of the road, limiting residents' access to one car each way. Larger delivery trucks had to park in the middle of the road, continually blocking access to the residents, and then the trucks had to reverse back along Stewart Drive, left into Golden Avenue, and then complete a sharp right-hand turn to access Stewart Drive again to exit. Due to the road ending at 49 Stewart Drive, there is not sufficient room for trucks to turn, and this caused many months of chaos. Reversing out of our driveways had to be approached with extreme caution in order to access the tight area between the parked vehicles on either side of the street. In some situations, a contractor would guide you out of the driveway so you wouldn't hit any other vehicles. One of our neighbours' cars was damaged by a forklift truck trying to offload a delivery truck in the middle of the road. This high level of constant disruption occurred for only one single level home. How many contractors' vehicles would be spread across the area for the construction of 32 units, continually reducing the residents' accessibility to one car only, having access one way? How many delivery trucks would be required to deliver the amount of materials required for the construction of these units? Our area would be continually clogged with trucks driving down the middle of the road and then trying to reverse out. It would be months and months of sheer chaos and continually being blocked by access. Should this construction go ahead, 32 units equal 32 plus cars, as many people are a two-car family. Where will the additional cars parked? I doubt the units will have access for 50-odd vehicles, which means that the unit residents will park on either side of the street, plus creating further stress for the residents by reducing the access again to a single line of traffic. 32 units also equals 64 refuse and recyclable bins. Can the collection truck safely enter, collect the bins, and then complete a turn to exit, or will the bins be placed outside in the street, causing further disruption if bins are overflowing and rubbish is strewn over the area? When this area flooded back in 1983, many houses were underwater and the emergency services had to access the area in dinghies and small boats to rescue the residents out of their homes. It made us all very aware how inaccessible this area would be if a fire occurred in the immediate vicinity. Emergency vehicles would be hampered trying to drive into the one-way area at present, let alone having additional unit residents' cars parked either side of the roads, and the chaos that would occur by these people trying to exit the area at the same time to flee the fire. The safety would be extremely compromised on all levels. It should also be noted that during peak times, it is virtually impossible to exit Stewart Drive safely. Traffic constantly queues on the left-hand side of Shores Road to cross Heath Road's bridge, and very rarely do they allow for cars...
1 minute, Gail.
Sorry?
You have 1 minute left, Gail.
Entering our road. An additional 32 cars would bank up every morning and cause continual chaos for the residents. Many people in the area are long-time residents and elderly retired people, especially in the immediate vicinity of number 49, and this proposal is causing much stress and anxiety to these residents. Prior to making your final decision, could you please take the time to visit Stewart Drive and view the area yourself and the inaccessibility of the road to cope with the number of vehicles and trucks required to undertake a construction of this size, plus the addition of 60+ residents and vehicles? Hopefully, common sense will prevail and our quiet, safe way of life will not be destroyed by the stroke of a pen. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Councillors,
Sorry, they told me to do that.
councillors, does anyone have any questions of Gail before she steps away? None? Thank you, Gail, for your presentation. The next person to speak is Jean Manning. Thank you, Jean. You do have 5 minutes, and my apologies, Gail, I didn't advise you that I'd let you know that you have 1 minute to go. So, Jean, when you get to 4 minutes, I will advise you that you've got a minute left. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jean Manning and I live at 43 Stewart Drive. Obviously, that is 2 houses away from the gateway of 49. I will be severely impacted by the proposed building of 32 two-storey homes. Prior to the site being sold, an auction was held for the contents of the house and garden, including fully grown trees. Some of the trucks sent to pick up goods were unable to access the house or drive due to the size of the gate. Obviously, the pillars will be knocked down, but this still leaves a very small access road which has some beautiful deciduous trees which should not be allowed to be destroyed. Just as a matter of interest, the eastern suburbs has a 25.9% canopy. The western suburbs has a 5.5% canopy of trees. So, as in the case of the auction goods, will all buildings materials be coming to the site in smaller trucks, or will they all be offloaded outside my house and drive, as was the case with the auctioned goods? One day I was blocked in for 20 minutes with no sign of a driver. I think I can speak for all of the nearby residents in saying it is not homeless people we are objecting to. Everyone deserves accommodation, but Stewart Drive is too narrow for this proposal, with only the one entrance and the same exit. These objections were the same when the private dwellings were proposed last year. We are a very quiet, low-density area and will suddenly become high density. There will be too many cars for safety, and even more cars will be parking at the curb. And lastly, my biggest concern: will fire trucks and ambulances be able to access the area, especially at night when most people are at home and there will be cars parked on both sides of the road? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. Councillors, questions? No? Okay, the next to speak is John McDonald. Thank you, John. Same drill, 5 minutes. 4 minutes, I'll let you know if you go that long.
Thank you, councillors. My name's John McDonald. I live at 4 Greg Place, which obviously adjourns the proposed development. Lived in the city of Windham for over 30 years. Am I too loud? Is that better? Lived in the city of Windham for over 30 years, 25 years volunteering for various organisations, current Justice of the Peace, ex-president of the Werribee Apex Club. So I just want to point out that, like everyone here, we've got empathy for the homeless, but obviously I oppose high-density social housing at 49 Stewart Drive. I would like to remind councillors that any new development should complement existing dwellings, not detract from the peace and ambience currently enjoyed by residents. We currently live on blocks approximately 600 square metres. So how is 32 houses, townhouses, on 7,000 square metres consistent with existing dwellings? So I would hope that you mention that to the Minister. Finally, will I get my notes organised? Here we go. As I did, you just simply need to Google crime statistics for public housing and a multitude of articles providing irrefutable proof that grouping together people from lower socio-economic means increases both crime and antisocial behaviour. So I would invite everyone to do that. I've got a recent article here from the Herald Sun. And I'll read just a snippet. It's from Dean Cage, and he's from public housing on Norton Avenue in Geelong West. And he mentions, there are a number of residents who suffer from alcohol and drug addictions and are often visited by unwelcome strangers, triggering violence and crime in the complex. Anyone can just walk in off the street. Theft, assault, property damage are commonplace in the units. Mr. Cage also goes on to say, and this is relating to the state government, he has repeatedly asked for security systems to be installed and extra external gates, but it all fell on deaf ears. We're simply asking for safety and security. So what's my solution for 49 Stewart Drive? And it's genius, if I do have to say so myself. It's prime residential land. Why doesn't council subdivide the land into, say, 12 blocks and market that towards the top end of town, and then use those funds to buy moderate housing across the city of Windham? What do you think, Peter?
I think that we don't own the land, so we can't sell it.
But you can put that to the Minister.
Oh, well, we could, but council can't sell it.
All right. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The next to speak is Kevin Sayers. Kevin, yes, thank you. So again, Kevin, at 4 minutes, I'll let you know if you go that long, that you've got a minute left, sir.
Look, I'd like to apologise first. I didn't really think I was going to be called up, but I think just side events and all that all was expanded before when the 35 odd units were going to go up there, and I think it's a form of intimidation and harassment of the people, because people work, got a lot of obligations. These professional people on the side can push and change rules, times and venues when they do things. And I think it's terrible that we've got to go through all this again. And I'm surprised, if people are forthcoming and honest, why didn't the developers, they seem to have dropped in the background as we dig in deeper to the circumstances why this has all changed. It almost seems like the government's complicit to being involved. The same developer's name is behind the whole thing in the first place. And I think that's shocking that they've got away with that. It shows that they're not very ethical, these people, the way they're behaving. And as mentioned, there are other places where these developments could occur. And as mentioned also, that the area, people buy in areas because they're of valued points they see for family reasons and security and all these things. And for the, not necessarily blaming the council, but for us to lose our rights, it's pretty disappointing that by stealth to change the areas in these names, in this situation. Also, the council could be forced to, you've seen in other areas of development around, in particularly in areas where they're just nice, narrow roads and all this type of thing, you end up no parking. You've got to get a licence to park these spots. And like Manavale, present there, you go down there, I don't believe it's like that. They've got concrete blocks. They just dig into the road for a while. A few trucks bounce over, they fall out, you've got lumps of concrete. And, sorry about that. And all the rubbish gets hooked up in there, the roads look a mess. Councils can't get the cleaning equipment down there, so you see stuff in the gutters, it just doesn't get cleaned up. Long runs of no parking down Manavale Crescent down there. And I think it's an example, and probably even further exacerbated, because you can go in and out of Manavale, whereas in Stewart Drive, the people are going to be overtaxed for the people when they immediately come out and turn around. There's going to be overtaxing the whole system there. And also the council may be forced to put, as I mentioned, no parking, and it's going to really make it bad. The other situation of these people they say they're going to put in there, they're going to have prams and kids. What, they're going to have to push them up the hill? There's no footpaths there. They were going to put them in, they say they're not. So I think the council is going to be in a very complex situation where it's going to make them look bad with the residents. So just adding to things that are crossing my mind rather saying the same points over again. So I think it's a very difficult situation, and I thank you for the council hearing me out on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, thank you, Kevin. So I take it there's no questions. So the recommendation is the full recommendations on 111 to 116. Sorry? Not here. I got an email, Rona's sick. Thank you. Councillors, can I have a mover for this item, please? Just pipped. Councillor Gilligan, seconded by Councillor Hegadich. Councillor Gilligan.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I've been on this council for close to 6.5 years, or whatever it's been now, and I have never been more angry about an application than I've ever seen that we have absolutely no control over. This application is a total disgrace. It's a disgrace based on where it's located, the impact and the destruction of the neighbourhood that it's about to go into if the government signs off on this, and a disgrace to the people that will ultimately have to live in this place in terms of the car dependency components and the type of livability for them in terms of being able to access a job and ultimately to get out of what will be undoubtedly very tough circumstances for those individuals that make refuge in these houses. And I talk to these components because If you consider a location like Werribee train station, Market Road, an area which is well known for social housing, that would be more an appropriate place for this type of development. And indeed, I have been saying on the affordable housing strategy, this precise example before us in the future, we will be condemned to support if we are not more clever about the adopted policy that we take in June or July of this year. On the point of this particular application, I say to you, not only those that have spoken as the objectors, but indeed the residents around this estate, it's time to get loud. You will have a vote at the November election, and you should exercise it to make it clear that this is an inappropriate project. But you also have a voice, and nothing we say or do in this chamber will change the outcome, but everything that you do about making sure that you approach your local media outlets, that you get signatures, that you get out and do some door knocking and say to the hundreds of residents that will be impacted by this, no, we don't want to support this. That is going to be a much better use of your time and a much more high probability of change, because the government are not inclined to support a project that's going to have hundreds of angry residents saying that they will change their view on who represents them if this project goes ahead. That's how you change these things. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what you're going to have to do, because this project will most likely get up if you don't. So the final point I would say is that we need to make sure, from our point of view in the affordable housing strategy, that we are not in any way, shape or form creating an inconvenient scenario like the one that we have here. We're talking about smaller dwellings, such as what is contained in the ultimate report, which in fairness does oppose this project, but it does reference benefits. It references benefits of the type of housing that may or not go into these types of locations. So in summary, this is a highly inappropriate development in an area that clearly is not designed for high density development. You only have to drive down there to know how quiet and how large the type of properties are down in that street, and the destruction that this project will create, not only for those that live there, but for the people that ultimately will occupy these properties if this is signed off by the Minister. And finally, we have to make it clear to the government where we want these priority projects. We are at great risk as a city if we do not send a clear message to this big housing build and the Victorian government where we want these projects located. Communities like this, out in Stewart Drive, we're going to see more of this problem as government impose high density development in inappropriate locations. Now, I don't think anybody around this table or indeed in the community would concede that having development close to a train station would be great for the people that will occupy this space. I want to see scenarios where the people that are unfortunately, through no fault of their own, having to live in social housing, get access to a job, get access to healthcare, get access to the opportunities that they need to have a better life. That is not possible in a place like this. How will they be able to, unless they're able to afford to buy a car, get to those types of services? That is why we should not only oppose this application, but be really clear about where the social and affordable housing needs to go. It must go near services. It must go in areas that are appropriate, and most certainly not in areas like this. So good luck to you. I hope you get loud. I hope you get out there, go to the local media outlets and say this is unacceptable, not only for you, but for them. And we see the change in seeing an alternate location than the one that's proposed. Thank you,
Councillor Gilligan. Councillor Hegarty.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a highly unusual application insofar as the decision of the application is being made by the Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change and not this council, or this planning committee rather. We are required to make decisions in the best interests of our municipality, and while we may support the Big Build housing program and the need for diversity of housing options for people and residents of Windham, on this occasion at this property, the development has missed the mark. I have said previously that this is a highly unusual application because we have no authority to approve or refuse this development, and our only option is that the same option as our residents, and that is to write and to make a written submission to the relevant minister. This is our one opportunity to have a say on behalf of our community, and therefore I welcome the officer's written planning advice to the applicant on this occasion. I have visited the site, and in principle, I am concerned about the application. However, as I will not be the responsible for making this decision, I can only support tonight's motion. To this end, it is worth noting the officer's comments in the report that as it stands, the officer's advice to us would be that the application should not be approved in its current form. I therefore appreciate the officer's position insofar as it tries to impart a common sense result at the same time as making a statement to the applicant that on the off chance the department was to approve the application, they really should take into account the key issues that have been raised by this council and the community so that this development could somehow meet the current and future demands of this community. I will be supporting this motion tonight as that is my only opportunity to show my opposition to this development. This motion considers the proposal against the relevant provisions of Victoria's Big Housing Build Program, Clause 52.20, and the feedback from the community. I'll be voting in favour of the motion that this planning committee notifies the applicant of the council's objection whilst also providing relevant feedback and conditions if the minister does decide to approve the proposed development, notwithstanding our position to oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hegeditch. Councillor, is there any speakers against this motion? Any further speakers for it? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and just at that opportune time, my dog has started to bark, so...
That's okay, we'll just count him as an objector.
I hope you cannot hear that. I do note, and it has been covered, that we are only able to comment on the proposed development at 49 Stewart Drive in Werribee. We are not the decision makers on this development. I am pleased to see Council's objection in relation to this proposed development. I've also had a number of people contact me about the development in relation to a number of issues which have been covered already by Councillor Gilligan and Councillor Hegeditch, and thank you for that. If it does go ahead, Council has put forward a number of changes to try and improve this development for any future social housing development. But there is a bigger issue here. There is no transparency by this current state government of where these planned social housing developments will be built. What is the state government's plan here? And it should be made more transparent to the Windham community and to this council. As one resident did say when they were speaking tonight, this is social housing development by stealth. And they all seem to be in Werribee at the moment. Will they be dispersed across the municipality or not? Lots of questions but not many answers, and I'll be supporting the recommendation tonight to oppose the development and issue the written planning advice tabled in the report. I'd also like to thank the residents who have contacted me and who have spoken tonight. Done a fantastic job. As Councillor Gilligan said, get loud, and I'm here to help. And I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Now, I was just about to say, I believe I saw your hand, Councillor Marcus, so I'll let you go next if you would.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to thank the residents who have contacted me. Here it is all here. You have done a super job. Thank you very much. This is the wrong position. I know that area well. I've been up there. I know many of the people. I've got a beautiful old lady, 97, who is going through hell at the moment with what's there, and they're not, the housing people are not even there. We cannot allow the state government to do this to our residents. It is totally wrong. And the paper cutting that one of the speakers held up, people going through hell. I can tell you now, they have ruined the flats in Watton Street. The people that bought in there for their dream homes, one has had to sell. They cannot stand what has happened. And I am now living in fear because I'm 100 metres away. So, Mr Mayor, and our council officers, we have to do more. We have to make sure that the state government understand. Yes, I work with homeless people. Not all of them are bad. I feed them. But we cannot put them into one area. We need to assimilate them so that they can work with all the lovely residents and they learn how to live their lives. But we cannot put them into that one area. And I think this was an interesting from Kevin. He says, extreme overdevelopment. There are now 38 residential houses in Stewart Drive. And if they go ahead with the 32 units, that will equate to a plus 84% increase in high density living. Where else are you going to see that? Where else? The other thing is, another speaker, I think it was Jean, the removal. There's going to be 84 beautiful trees removed now. Yeah, Wyndham's got the lowest tree canopy. Why will we not stick up to this government and say, no, you want tree cover and now you're going to cut down 84? Transport for the people to get to work, transport for them to get to buy their goods, to their health services, it's not there. There's no cycle paths in any of those streets. So there's this really and truly, and Mr. Les Turner got in touch with me. That part of this, that's the third part of Stewart Drive, which was supposed to have 8 houses. Where's that gone, please, council officers? Where has all that planning gone over the years? So I won't go on any further. I'd just like to thank the residents for having the faith in sending it to the Irumee Ward councillors. We are with you. I will be there with you. I will always be there with you because we have to tell this government, I did mention it to Matthew Guy yesterday, I will be sending him all this information because you've got your opportunity to make a difference in November. Please go for it.
Could you summarise? Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. There's just so much information. And the other thing is we've got to let the state government know because, and it can't all go round railway stations because we've already got another one. There's people now in that area absolutely horrified what's going to happen to them. They put one in, it's 2 doors down for the poker machines, 74 units. So we've got, in one little square,
Councillor
we've got so many. So really and truly, we need to say no. We need to have the council say we want better planning rules. It's our city, it's not their city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. Any further speakers against? Any further speakers for? Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sadly, as other councillors have said this evening, we are not the decision-making authority due to this being a Victoria big housing build project. We've heard from Gail, Jean, John and Kevin. Thank you for taking the time and effort to share your concerns and experiences. We hear you and we hear you very clearly, and we agree this application is wrong. Homelessness is a big issue for our community. We do need more housing, but we need it in the right places. Here is the wrong place for it. No one here will be the winner. We are not the responsible authority. All we're able to do is make the submission. I agree with the officer's comments and submission opposing the housing proposed in this area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Councillors, any further speakers on this item before I put it to the vote? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm with the sentiment of the room tonight. Everyone's angry with this application. I oppose a few applications, and this is the worst so far. I just want to reassure our residents that we are with you here tonight. We're on the same side. No one in their right mind will approve this planning application. Though tonight, like Councillor McIntyre said, Council does not have the authority to disapprove this application tonight. But we will be opposing this through our submission to the Minister. We do need social housing in this city. However, the proposed site does not seem to be the right location, as many other councillors already mentioned. High-density development like this should be situated at least close to public transport or activity centres due to the nature of the eligible applicants for social housing who may not own private cars or have low incomes that may need support to access public transport, health services, education, and employment. This is our value, supporting and advocating for the poor and disadvantaged. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. So there being no further speakers, I put it to the vote. All those in support of the officer's recommendation? Against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, the next item is item 6.4, Windham North Development Contribution Plan Project Implementation Program. The report is on page 141 to 147, recommendation on 141. There are no attachments. Mr. McKinnon, could you give us an overview of this report? That's fine. You're most welcome. That's fine. Thank you. Mr. McKinnon. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll talk to both items 6.4 and 6.5 simultaneously, councillors, as they're almost identical in process and administration. And they both refer to the consultation draft of the Windham North and the Windham West DCP project implementation plans. Both these DCP PIPs, as they're known, are critical elements of Council's planning and seek to align our major infrastructure delivery with in line with the rapid growth that we experience in our Windham PSP areas. Both draft DCP PIPs are now being presented to you for noting and for some consideration, and also to go out and consult with our development community as to whether the projects we have listed in both those DCP PIPs are aligned with their needs as they continue to develop the city. It's important to note that the DCP PIPs are reviewed annually, and we will be coming back to Council with a final recommendation post-consultation for formal approval before the end of this financial year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Officers, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Hegadich. Seconder, Councillor Gilligan. Councillor Hegadich.
No comments, thank you.
Councillor Gilligan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's the Gilligan and Hegadich show, according, I'm sure, the mover and
Bit of a
sector of
tag
resolutions tonight. Look, I am speaking on this item with direct reference to Doherty's Road Bridge, which is an important issue that's been raised with me by a number of residents over a couple of years now. It's important to reiterate that this is a project that is fully funded in the existing reserves and is a priority project for the forward 12 to 18 months, with planning well underway for the development of this bridge. This will be a critical component of infrastructure for the Marigold and also the Creekstone estates, as well as the Emerald Park estate, which has many thousands of residents, and indeed, as more and more housing stages come online, this is a critical component for Chafee Ward. So this is a project to basically make sure that we're saying that we are listening to you, we know this is a critical issue, and I look forward to seeing construction on that commence as soon as practically possible. I vote in favour of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. Councillor Hegadich, as a seconder.
I moved it.
Sorry.
That's fine, thank you.
Sorry, I was that used to, yeah.
It's all good.
You tricked me, that one, yeah, it's okay. Councillors, any speakers against? Any further speakers for? No? I put it to the vote then. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. You need to forewarn me next time because I got confused. Item 6.5, Windham West Development Contributions Plan Project Implementation Program. Report pages 148 to 157, recommendation 148, no attachments. Mr. McKinnon's already given an overview with regards to this one in the previous item, so can I have a mover, please? Councillor Shaw pipped you. Councillor Hegeditch is a seconder. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a few words in relation to this. It's good to see it going out to consultation or exhibition. I think it's important to know the DCs only cover, though, some of the massive infrastructure gaps that we need to fill in Wyndham's West. We certainly didn't get a lot of help with that from the state budget.
You've gone mute, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. I don't know what happened then.
It wasn't me, I promise.
That's all good. I'm not sure where I got up to.
Just go back a couple of lines. Just go back a couple of lines.
I'll say that we certainly need a lot more money to fill out infrastructure gaps in Wyndham's West, and we certainly didn't get a lot of that in relation to the recent state budget, and we haven't got much from the feds either. Ison Road remains a serious priority at Wyndham West, and there are a number of smaller intersection upgrades foreshadowed for Bolan Road, but we need...
Councillor Shaw, you've gone quiet again.
I'm not touching anything, so I'm not sure what's happening, but we need to have continued funding from federal and state governments to fill that infrastructure gap for Wyndham's West. This is going out for exhibition, so it'll be good to see if our development industry partners agree. I look forward to seeing the feedback. Thank you. I'll now mute myself.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Hegeditch, I'll just check my notes to make sure I got it right. Do you wish to speak?
No, I'm good this time, thank you.
No, not this time. I haven't even mentioned Councillor Gilligan because he didn't get a look in. Any councillors wish to speak against this motion? Any councillors for? Councillor Gilligan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I probably should have added to the last resolution, but I will add to this one, the proposed difference in terms of the current budget balances as they stand for this DC PIP. Noting, of course, as it currently stands in the case of the Wyndham North plan, there could be some $40 million in the budget balance that is unallocated for projects, and that is of significant importance in the Wyndham North component of the DC because we have the Riverdale Aquatic Centre that is so chronically needed in terms of funding, and the recreation, the indoor recreation centre as well, located hopefully on the corner of Derrimut and Leaks in the future to ensure that we've got sporting opportunities for Tarneit and Tarneit North. The debt facility, of course, in Wyndham West is an important component to delivering the road infrastructure that Councillor Shaw has pointed out, but it does, in the case of Wyndham North, deliver a really important point about how that unallocated surplus is used, and in my opinion it should be used for those two projects as outlined. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, any further speakers for this motion? There being none, I put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 7 is confidential business. There is nil. And item 8 is close of meeting. So at 8:04, I close the meeting. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Good night, and we'll see you again soon.